is Eiry, and I'm a member of Pen-y-Fai Welsh folk dancers, and this is a Welsh story for Angharad Celtic gathering. It's a true story actually, lots of it is true, and there's a song that Gwenith is going to sing called Bugeilio'r Gwyn, which means watching the white wheat. It's a very, very beautiful folk song, and this is the story behind that folk song. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a very beautiful, handsome young man. His name was Will Hopkin, and he was a thatcher. Now, thatchers made roofs for cottages because in those days they didn't have tiles or slate on the roof. They had a thatch which was made of straw and reeds and that sort of thing, and they needed to be replaced often. So the thatchers were always in work, and this very handsome young man, Will Hopkin, was a thatcher. He was also a poet, and he was also a lovely singer. And he used to sing as he worked and thatched the cottages. And one day, he was given the work of thatching an old house called Pen-y-Fai. Now, this was a very grand house, so it was a very big thatch, and it was a lot of work. So Will was there for quite some length of time, thatching this roof. And while he was thatching, he was enjoying himself and singing, listening to the birds singing, having a great time. And he had a beautiful voice. And in the house was this young girl, the daughter of the house. Her name was Anne Thomas. And she led a very lonely life, did Anne. She was an only child. Her father had died when she was a tiny baby, and so somebody else had been put to take care of her, take care of the house and take care of all the finances of the house and make sure that Anne made a good marriage. His name was Anthony Maddox, and he was her sort of stepfather. And he didn't like Anne very much, but he certainly didn't let her have any freedom at all. And Anne was sitting in her room, twiddling her thumbs, reading or doing something else. No TV, of course, no radio. Maybe she was singing. But then she heard this wonderful singing coming from the roof. And she hung her head out of the window and looked up. And there was this beautiful, handsome, blonde young man singing his heart away. And he looked down and he saw Anne looking up. So he came down from the roof and climbed up to the window, because it was a bedroom window, and started chatting to her. And he did that every day for, quite some time. And eventually, Anne began to trust him and fall for him. And in fact, she fell head over heels in love for him. And he fell for her too. There was a beautiful romance blossoming between them. And then Anthony Maddox, her guardian, found out. And he was absolutely livid, because he was rather hoping that Anne, well, he'd planned, in fact, that Anne should marry his son, also called Anthony. But Anne didn't like him very much because he wasn't very pretty. In fact, he was quite ugly, and he was fat and thick and not very nice at all. Whereas Will was beautiful. He was a lovely, lovely human being. And so Anne fell in love. And then her mother found out. And her mother scolded her, told her off, and threatened to tell Anthony Maddox. And eventually she did, because Anne didn't stop talking to Will. Every opportunity they had, they would chat to each other, have a little kiss, and a little cuddle if no one was looking. So she was locked in her room. They barred the window so she couldn't hang her head out of it, and made her stay in there. So then she would write letters. And she sent Will several letters which her maid would deliver, and take these letters and put them inside this old oak tree. There was a hole in the oak tree, and they'd put the letters inside there. And Will would take the letters, read them, write his own answers. He'd write poetry, beautiful poetry to her, put it back in the old hole in the oak tree. The maid would take it back, and so it went on. Eventually, they found out. Oh yes, they found out about the letters. So do you know what they did? They took away the paper, the ink, and the pen, so that she could write no more letters, and kept her locked in her room with a window barred. So what did Anne do? She got a maid to bring a leaf from a sycamore tree. They're quite big leaves on sycamore trees. And she pricked her arm till it drew blood, and she wrote some letters with her own blood on the sycamore leaf. And the maid would take the leaf, put it in the hole in the oak tree. And then they found out about that too, and they decided enough is enough. This can't go on any longer. And they decided that Anne should marry Anthony Maddox's son, also known as Anthony Maddox. And so they arranged a wedding. And against her will, Anne married Anthony Maddox. But oh, she hated him. She hated it. She hated the whole thing. And she began to get weak and ill because she refused to eat. And she got weaker and sicker. And very soon after they got married, she was confined to bed because she was so ill. And it looked as if she was going to die. They tried, the doctors came, they tried all sorts of things, but nothing worked. And when she was on her deathbed, she pleaded with her mother to send for Will, because he was the only love of her life. And she wanted to see him before she died. So because she was really at death's door, they sent for Will. And he came and held her very closely and kissed her lips. And Anne Thomas died in his arms. And he wrote this beautiful song about her. There's a gravestone in Llanganwyd Church near where I live. And it's the gravestone to Anne Thomas, who died of a broken heart. And outside the church, in the village square, there's a large cross which memorises Will Hopkin, the man who wrote this lovely song. Diolch yn fawr. Goodbye.